Okay, so now we're going to look at how to follow a pattern. So this is a great book, by the way. Came out a while ago. But so to follow an actual pattern, let's get to that. Okay, so this book, it shows you the pictures of the things so you can tell what the finished thing is supposed to look like. And then it actually tells you the patterns. So this one, they'll usually start off with like, here's the size, what kind of yarn you should use, right? And these are old, so they might not have these yarns anymore. But, well, no, brown sheep is still a thing, right? And it'll tell you the brown sheep company cotton fleece. That's the yarn itself, and what it's made out of. It's made out of cotton and merino wool. It's a 4-ounce skein that's 215 yarns. So you need one skein, and they use this color, right? And they use size 15 needles. That's huge. Anyway, then they tell you the gauge. So the gauge is how many stitches per inch that they're getting with this yarn and these needles. They're getting 13 stitches in 4 inches. So it's usually, patterns are 9 times that I've never seen a pattern that doesn't say this, but they usually say within 4 inches. So it's not 13 stitches per inch. It's 13 stitches in 4 inches, which is like, I don't know, 2 stitches or something like that. So then they'll start with directions. And they'll say, with this yarn, cast on a certain number of stitches, knit, this is very easy, knit all rows, leaving enough for a tail, and then bind off. And that's it. So you're literally just casting on, knitting till you get sick of it, and then you bind off. So that's an easy pattern. Some of them will say, oh, here's one with charts, right? So this is the illusion. This is a kind of funky pattern. Depending on which way you look at it, you can either see the alien or you just see stripes. It's kind of fun. So they'll tell you that. There's a little story of like, this is how I made this, blah, blah, blah. And this is how big it's, they made it this big. You don't have to make it that big, but this is how big they made it. This is the yarn that they use. They use 2 different colors, the main color and a contrasting color. They use size 7 needles. And they got a 22 stitches in 4 inches, right? So whatever, divide 4 into 22. You can do the math. And then there's a special note about there's only 2 rows because and the colors are carried on the side. So they, she gives you a little tip here. The instructions are cast on 40 stitches and then follow the chart. And then here's this big ass chart that tiny little words there. There's row 1. And so you're knitting with the orange, which is the main color, which is knit on the right side, and you purl on the wrong side. That's a blank right there. And then when there's a little whatever that, what is that called? Whatever that is. You're knitting with the main color, and you're purling on the right side and knitting on the wrong side. Then with your contrasting color, when it's a blank contrasting, knit on the right side, purl on the wrong side. And when you got the little doohickey there, with the contrast, so it's just, it tells you what to do. So here you're going to start with the main color, then you're going to switch to the contrasting color and do the, you switch back and forth between whatever. And there's a certain number of stitches of each thing that's going to happen. So it'll make this little space, whatever. And I guess if you tilt it a certain way, you can sort of see well, not so much with this, but sometimes you can see what's going on. And that's it, right? So that's kind of how you read the pattern. They're all going to start with like, these are the materials you use, the needles you need, the gauge, and then the directions of like cast on so many stitches and do a thing. And they'll have a picture. Sometimes they'll have a schematic that'll tell you how many this should be this many inches on this side and this many inches on that side. Especially like, okay, so here's a mitten. I've done this mitten. See my little marker here. So here's a little schematic for your mitten. And this is a mitten that has a thumb. I think this was the first time I did this kind of thumb. It's called, what do they call this? An afterthought thumb. So you put waste yarn. So you're knitting your little mitten. You're knitting around, knit, 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 knit. And then you get to the place where the mitten is and you knit with waste yarn. And then you just keep going. And then when you're done, when you get down up to the point, you come back and you rip the waste yarn out and there's live stitches, and you pick up those live stitches and you make a thumb. This is the first time I did that. I was so addicted to it. I loved it. And now I do it for like everything. Anyway, so that's how you read patterns. Sometimes there's color work and a schematic, right? And some patterns are well written and you can just read them and just do them and it's fine. And sometimes you're like, what the hell is she talking about? And you need help. So that's where Ravelry is helpful to, look through Ravelry and see who else has made the pattern and what kind of weird stuff to expect.